Welcome to Coruzant Technologies, home of the Digital Executive Podcast.
Welcome to the Digital Executive. Today's guest is Tom Rodden. Tom Rodden has focused on IT and supply chain over his 34-year career. Most recently, Tom was named CIO of Varian's Global Information Technology Organization in 2017. Varian Medical Systems is a $3 billion revenue medical device company focused on radiation therapy. Tom's IT operations consist of 400 staff and an $80 million OpEx budget. He has defined the mission of IT at Varian as boundaryless partnership, with the goal of extending the role of IT beyond the four walls of the enterprise, focusing on customers, acquisition integration, and leading transformation.
Well, good afternoon, Tom. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Brian. Thank you.
Awesome, Tom. I appreciate you jumping on. And, you're a fellow technology executive like myself. You've been in healthcare, traversed that vertical for a number of years. And I just really am excited to talk to you today and jump into kind of your career history and some of the nuggets of wisdom you've learned over your career. So first question I want to ask, Tom, is you've got quite that career in technology as an engineer, as a leader, and currently the CIO at Varian Medical Systems. Could you share with our audience the secret to your career growth and what inspires you?
Sure. As much as it's a secret, I will be happy to share it. So one of the things that I have told people in the past, and I'll repeat it for you here, is that simply being willing to take some risks has been the story of my career, and frankly, the key to a lot of my success. I like to say it's about just saying yes. I started out as an undergraduate in history and English as a double major in the U.S. and I ended up as CIO of a $3 billion company. It was a long, circuitous journey, and I said yes to a lot of things along the way that made me pretty nervous, but were exciting at the same time. I decided to go to business school instead of continuing down that academic path. I got out of business school and into General Electric in marketing. And when I was offered the opportunity to go into an M&A function with GE based out of London, and I was in Connecticut before that at headquarters, I said yes, even though I didn't know exactly what that meant. I joined one of the deals that we consummated, an acquisition in Europe, and was asked to continue in marketing, which was relatively easy. But shortly after that, I was asked to move into logistics and run a warehouse in Vienna. And the only reason I felt at the time I was being asked to do that was because I was fluent in German. And this didn't seem like the key qualification to be running a warehouse operation in a large enterprise. But I said yes anyway and thought I'll learn and I will grow from that experience. But it's a completely new direction. And I kept having these kinds of opportunities that I said yes to along the way. Do you want to head up an automated warehouse in the UK, which was same area but different? I said yes to that. Do you want to run manufacturing planning? I said, sure, yes to that. Do you want to join a consulting operation? I joined Deloitte, first Price Waterhouse and then Deloitte for about a 10-year run in consulting. And that was really IT consulting. And I said, sure, yes to that. And coming out of consulting, I moved into Varian in 2007. I've been with Varian for almost 14 years now. Initially in applications, that was relatively easy transition. But then I was asked to lead up infrastructure and security. And that made me very nervous. It wasn't my sweet spot at all. I said yes to that. And finally, it really positioned me to take on the role of CIO. So long story short, I think taking risks, of course, they need to be calculated risks, intelligent risks, but the opportunity for growth, learning, and just personal enrichment, as well as professional enrichment, I think just demands that we all seize those opportunities. And so that's been the story of my career.
I love that. And you're absolutely right, Tom. We've had a lot of guests on the show that said, the key to success really is taking those risks and saying yes and continually educating yourself and jumping all in. And I really like that. So thank you for sharing. And so, Tom, we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk just a tad about the pandemic. Hopefully this is all starting to lift. It's going to go away. We've learned a lot from it, but what do you really see as the challenges going forward versus what we had during the pandemic the last 15 months?
Well, one of the challenges is I think things are never going to be quite the same. When it comes to people and locations, I think we're not going all back to the office. At Varian, we have a company of about 10,000 employees, and probably 7,000 were in office or manufacturing facilities on a full-time basis prior to the pandemic. Sales and service people were on the road, and they were out of the office and will continue in that, to operate that way. But the other 7,000 Varian employees, almost all left the office, and only a small portion, even now, here in June of 2021, have come back to the office. There will be a slow return at Varian, but there's a lot of discussion about going hybrid, several days a week in, maybe several days a week out, or some teams fully in, some teams remaining out. So we're going to have a very different profile for the company. And this has implications for IT. Some of the implications are around how do we secure the new enterprise with so much more remote work going on. We don't have the data center as a fortress anymore. We don't have firewalls protecting the crown jewels in the same way when everyone was in the office and running on a local area network. So that's a big shift, and we're looking at some possible technology shifts as well to address that. I think there's also a people challenge here that sometimes gets overlooked, especially in the IT realm, where we're focused so much on the technology. But I think the fact that people are remote and may continue to be partially, if not fully remote going forward, has real implications for onboarding and for long-term loyalty. That is a real risk. People being effective remotely has opened a lot of doors and opened a lot of eyes. People are saying, hey, I can work for anybody anywhere. And many companies are feeling more and more that way too. So the market and the mobility for our employees to move around is much greater than it was before the pandemic. And our ability to maybe retain them, keep them loyal, make them feel part of a larger mission, and make them feel part of the culture. That ability for companies has declined as a result of this situation. So the risk of retention or loss, perhaps I should say, is heightened, I think. And we have to think through how we're going to do this better. One of the discussions I had recently with someone was about the notion of off-site meetings, and that we need to now really plan on-site meetings. And maybe we need facilities to be thought of differently. Now they're not cubicles and offices for people to work in 5 days a week. They are meeting venues for large groups to gather and to have that kind of culture and social side, and really build teams and build an organization and a connection in a way that, we thought that's what the offsites would do before. Now that maybe that's what our facilities become. They become on-sites if we keep them. So that's sort of a second thought. And that has more IT implications about how do you set things up? What kind of video equipment do you want? What kind of collaboration is necessary in these different types of venues and facilities? And I think the last thing that occurs to me in this space is just moving customers to the cloud. Being in the life science industry at Varian, I think maybe unlike a lot of other industries, our customers have been more reluctant than most to trust in the cloud. And that is changing in good part because of the pandemic. Everybody hears about the ability for healthcare workers, doctors, nurses now to take patient histories, do visits effectively over a Zoom meeting or over a Teams meeting or WebEx meeting. And the success of that kind of remote process in the life science world has, again, opened eyes, and people are saying, maybe the cloud is our friend and not a threat. And maybe that is something that we should consider on a broader basis, for example, for our entire application landscape. And so I think we're seeing in the life science industry and for Varian, for our customers specifically, more and more considering moving applications that they use, including Varian applications, to the cloud. And how we help them do that, I think, will also be part of the story going forward for us. So I see a lot of things returning to some semblance of normalcy, but it will also be quite different.
Sure. No, you've made some great points there, Tom, and we certainly appreciate that. Definitely, it's kind of the aftermath challenge, right? Now that we've got everybody used to working from home, what's next? How do we handle that? So thank you. I do appreciate it. And so, Tom, we're going to talk a little bit about tech. I'm sure you're obviously leveraging some new or at least some emerging technologies within your tech stack there. But is there anything you might be able to share with us today?
Sure. Yeah. I think what's really hot has been hot for probably a year or two now, if not longer, and is only getting hotter, it seems, is the security space. Mm-hmm. So a lot of what's new in technology, at least at Varian, has been around how do we secure the enterprise? How do we secure our employees' personal information? How do we secure our intellectual property? How do we secure financial information, M&A information, et cetera? And frankly, how do we secure ourselves more generally from ransomware, from malicious viruses and hacks, and so on and so forth? So that is where I think a lot of the new technologies that we're embracing would be found. One example is we are already making, I think, pretty effective use, but we need to get better still, using Microsoft's Azure Information Protection technology. So for the encryption and then very controlled decryption of messaging, of artifacts, documents, so that we are really secure in terms of that data, that content. I think that's one piece of it. And so that's a key technology for us. The efforts that we've made to scan our network, all endpoints, servers, devices, and make sure that we are really current. If we're going to have a data center, if we're going to have our own landscape in-house, then we need to be fully up to date. We need to be protecting it. We need to be monitoring it. So the use of Nexpose from Rapid7 has been something that we've been getting better and better at. One of the areas that we're discussing now is how do we get to zero trust, particularly as we talked about earlier, with so many of our people operating from home remotely. The attack surface for our malicious actors is growing or has grown. And so we're looking at a technology like Zscaler now as a possible way to get to a zero trust position. It will take time, even with a new technology like that. But the old approach of firewalls defending the fortress of the data center and the offices dotted around the globe, that was relatively effective, not completely, but with now employees scattered around the world in their own little local home office, it really does change things. So all of that, I think, is going to be supported by some of these technologies that we're emphasizing more and more. And we just made an investment in Cohesity, one of the vendors for backups that we were very interested in because they have what they call the immutable backup, or effectively a write once backup. So if you are attacked, if you do fall prey to ransomware and your production systems are encrypted and you're being held ransom, one of the great things about Cohesity, and Rubrik offers the same capability, but those two vendors offer this immutable backup capability. So you should be able to always restore from the backup because it cannot be overwritten, even if you lost control of your systems, even if you lost the most precious access to the attackers. They would not be able to, because no one is able to overwrite those backups. So that for us was a pretty valuable improvement that we've just gone live with in the backup process, that we will always be able to recover even if we fall prey. So lots of other examples we could get into, but I mean, the area of security is certainly one that we're spending a lot of time on investing in, and where we're seeing the newer technologies entering our landscape.
I love that. Yeah, security is always top of mind. And, I talk to a lot of CEOs of security companies, and they are right now doing some cutting edge development around deep learning and machine learning, because there is a ton of data that needs to be looked at. And there's just too much of false positives, anomalies that go on in a lot of these events, right? And so it's amazing what they're doing today to help stop the bad guys. But I appreciate what you all are doing in the security space. So thank you. And Tom, last question here. Could you share something from your career experience that would be helpful for those looking to grow their career in tech or leadership?
Absolutely. So at the outset of our conversation, Brian, I mentioned this notion of always, or often, maybe not always, but often saying yes to opportunities, to taking risks, and to embracing change in your own career. I would add to that, it's kind of a corollary, but maybe it's worth stating explicitly. I think in recent times, let's say, breadth has been undervalued. I think there's tremendous value in depth, being an expert in a field, even a pretty narrow field. We need that. We need to have experts in these applications, even in modules within applications. We need experts in programming languages that aren't the master of all. We need that expertise in all fields, not just IT. However, I think, again, part of my story, and I feel my success personally, has been the saying yes, leading to new opportunities that were fundamentally different. I got exposed to marketing. I got exposed to M&A. I got exposed to logistics, warehousing, and then manufacturing planning. I got exposed to consulting, which was very different from operating within industry. And it led me into IT. And then within IT, I dealt with applications as well as infrastructure, as well as security before becoming CIO. And I think all of those experiences collectively have given me a breadth that has made me a credible person in front of my colleagues and customers. I've had experiences that enable me to understand what they're facing in many cases, relate to it, even offer them business process advice, or at least ask intelligent business process questions without a lengthy education and ramp up period. So I feel that what I have managed to do in my career is get a breadth that makes me a credible partner for these business leaders, whether that's in the boardroom, whether that's around the table with the CEO staff, whether that's just with other colleagues, or whether that's with people outside of Varian. That has been really valuable. And I just wanted to just underline this idea that breadth, I believe, has been undervalued, and there is a credibility and a value to it that this saying yes to a variety of opportunities over your career helps to build. So I'd say that, and don't neglect your network. I think that's one of the things that I've not done well. This conversation is part of my effort to really get my thoughts out there and help and share and connect with more people. And I think that's something that we should be actually striving to do on a regular basis, and not at inflection points in your career, but continuously. So those would be the two bits of advice that I would offer. Think broadly, seize opportunities, even if they mean they're a little out of your sweet spot, because it does create this value of breadth. And don't neglect your network.
I love that, Tom. And you're absolutely right. And that's how leaders are forged, essentially, is getting out of, one, your comfort zone, taking the risk, but getting that breadth, getting that bigger view so you can be a strategic leader or a visionary. And I think that's great that you're sharing that. And absolutely, you need to always be getting out there and sharing your knowledge with your network. And that's one way to connect with people. And that's how you resonate. And people, just like this podcast, people resonate with something out of your podcast today that's going to help them in their career. So thank you again, Tom. And Tom, it was a pleasure having you on today. And I look forward to speaking with you real soon.
Thank you, Brian. It was a pleasure on my side as well. Really appreciate the time and the questions. Thank you.
Bye for now.